Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq, with daily insight on the Nasdaq-100 index, or the NDX, which is made up of 100 of the largest domestic and international non-financial innovative companies listed on Nasdaq. The NDX has been the barometer for U.S. large cap growth and also one of the best performing indexes over the last decade and a half, not to mention one of the most liquid index ecosystems in the world. Joining us this afternoon, we have Marex, Senior Specialist with Index Research and Development at Nasdaq Investment Intelligence. For this segment, we are going to focus on the biotech companies that are part of the Nasdaq-100, as January is National Biotechnology Month. Mark, it's great to have you with us. Welcome back to Trade Talks. And let's take a look at the performance of the 4 biotech companies that are part of the Nasdaq-100.
Thanks, Jill. Great to be back. And actually, yeah, I plan to do kind of back-to-back biotech highlights for the Nasdaq-100 this week and next week. Here we've got the 4 kind of pure biotechnology names in the index, at least as far as ICB goes in terms of sector classifications. Next week, we're going to talk about the 4 pharmaceuticals names. Of course, those 2 subsectors both qualify for inclusion in something like the Nasdaq Biotech Index, even though there's some differences there in terms of business model. But in any case, let's get right to it. So on this first chart, we've got performance of those 4 biotech subsector names in the Nasdaq-100. First thing that jumps out at you, right? There's a lot of dispersion here. Moderna finished the year up 143%. And even that was a big correction downward from its peak during the summer. Below that, you can see Regeneron, another big biotech name. Both of these we're going to dig into in a second here. Had itself a pretty decent year, up almost 31%. Just ahead of what the Nasdaq-100 as an index did, up about 27%. And then you've got the rest down there hovering right around 0, which is what NBI as an index did, and also what the other 2 names on this list, Illumina, which is a kind of diversified biotech and equipment, medical instruments type of company, and then Biogen, which is a big kind of traditional diversified biotech, biopharmaceuticals type of company. You could see they finished the year down 2%, even though that light blue line has a big jump up in June. What happened with Biogen, very interesting, kind of ruined some of the sentiment for the entire sector in the second half of the year. They had this really hyped Alzheimer's drug that was supposed to be a big deal when it got approved by the FDA. Turns out the approval for the FDA ended up being very controversial. The drug hasn't been prescribed very much at all. And was, very skeptically viewed by organizations like Medicare, which just recently actually decided they're not going to cover it. So we went from a highly anticipated blockbuster drug that was supposed to be highly effective and prescribed for a lot of people to all of a sudden being not so clear on whether it's effective, and, kind of a bummer for Biogen and the bigger, broader sector. So very different stories here. For the sector and the companies in it. And then we've got the two drill downs in the next 2 slides.
Yeah, and let's take a look at Moderna, and as of 2020 really became a household name for us.
Yeah, so added to the Nasdaq-100 in 2020, one of the few names that really just skipped over everything, went straight from being a small cap to being a large and even mega cap. You could see recently a market cap was above 100 billion. Check out the 3-year price return, even with that recent pullback as of the end of 2021, up over 1,500%. Their revenue has gone up by a factor of 20 over the course of the last year. No surprise, given that they've been selling literally hundreds of millions of these vaccine doses, not just in the US, but around the world. Really healthy gross margins. And, the interesting thing with Moderna is if COVID is really like the flu, this is not a one-shot revenue deal for Moderna, right? We're going to be getting modified boosters probably once a year for the foreseeable future. Not all of us, but a lot of us will be, just like with the flu shot. And then on top of that, because of how successful they've been with mRNA to vaccinate against COVID, Moderna is also looking into lots of other diseases, not just infectious diseases, but even certain types of cancers and other disorders, to try to see where mRNA technology can take us in terms of medical treatment.
Right. And of course, we also have Regeneron, which is on the therapeutic side to treating COVID.
Yeah, so Regeneron, really fascinating name. Their Global Genomics Center is one of the biggest gene research outfits in the entire world when you look at all public and private research centers of that type. It's a name that's been around for over 3 decades at this point, almost 70 billion market cap, pretty decent returns over the last few years, really heavy R&D generator as they build things like monoclonal antibody cocktails to treat COVID, where they're literally genetically engineering mice to produce human type antibodies that can then be injected into humans that are sick with COVID. They've had some very good progress with getting those products approved in Europe recently. Really good runway for the COVID product set, as well as a lot of other treatments that they're working on, injectables, as well as gene editing type of stuff. They've had interesting partnerships recently announced with some of the groundbreaking players in that space as well. So Regeneron, a positive note in the large cap biotech space, and certainly an important member of the Nasdaq-100 beyond the usual tech names that we talk about.
All right. Mark, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.